What these films depict: liberation, economy, love of self, love of community. What these films depict is what white society never saw for the most part. And if they saw elements of it, they surely did not cogitate or talk about that amongst themselves. What these films depict is an America that one man, Reverend Jones, had the foresight to say, this is worth investing in and this is worth telling. That's what these films depict. The Oklahoma African American experience is truly unique. We came as the slaves of the Native Americans. You had 5 civilized tribes that all owned African American slaves. We also participated in all 6 land runs, and then we came as citizens. So those 3 migration patterns are how African Americans settle Oklahoma. Those that were involved in slavery and their children received 40 acres of land. So that is something that is still historically, it's unique for Oklahoma. It's unique for the United States that these former slaves did receive something other than just freedom. Land ownership was the true social avenue of progress. If you owned the land that you worked, you were able to truly make a better way for your family. A lot of the black towns that make Oklahoma unique, it was over 30 some odd settlements of black towns in this state. What would occur? Relatives would pool their resources together and thus say, okay, we got a community now, we got a church, we got a school. Now let's incorporate and form a black town, an all black town, like Langston, like Boley, like Taft, Tatum's, Redbird, Lima. Again, uniqueness of Oklahoma, the all black town experience. But land ownership, keep in mind, same time frame. Mississippi, Alabama, some parts of Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Georgia. You're a sharecropper. You couldn't own land. Couldn't own land. A lot of times that was the foundation of could you vote. You couldn't vote, you couldn't represent your people in positions of authority as far as government. So land ownership was the backbone, the foundation of social progress. Reverend Jones was born a slave in Tennessee around 1856 or so. Now he's just a kid, so he was about roughly 9 or so once emancipation took place. And he migrated to Oklahoma, Muskogee area. And Reverend Jones became an ordained Baptist minister. But what is so phenomenal about the life and times of Reverend S.S. Jones, not only he was a circuit black Baptist preacher, he was able to document it on film. And from about 1925 to 1928, Reverend Jones traversed all of Oklahoma. He covered more black towns and cities than any individual as far as recording events. He came here to Langston, covered commencement in the early 20s. He came here to Langston and covered a football game and the fans in the stands. First recording of that anywhere. Now that's unheard of for a former slave, a person born into slavery, to have that kind of foresight and wisdom to record a story that very few whites were recording, let alone somebody black. I've been a collector of African Americana, black history for over 30 years. I've been very fortunate to gain quite a name in the collecting community. So I received a phone call on my cell phone from a white dealer out of Tulsa. And the gentleman said over the phone, "Are you Curry Ballard?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Do you collect that black stuff?" I said, "Yes." "What do you have?" And he proceeded to talk about these canisters of film. He says his grandfather was a large landowner in the city of Tulsa, owned many homes. Well, part of his inheritance was this particular home in which he went into the attic and found all those 27 canisters. So we met halfway between Tulsa and Langston in a community called Okemah, Woody Guthrie's hometown. And I looked at the canister. Now, I was familiar with Reverend S.S. Jones on 2 counts. He had a church in Muskogee, which was part of the Black Towns tours that a good friend of mine, we would congregate, and people from all over the country would come to this part of this Black Towns tour, and the headquarters that we would do this out of was Muskogee. Well, we would meet in Reverend Jones's church because it had his on the cornerstone his name on it, Reverend S.S. Jones. I just one of those things I never forgot. I said, "Boy, I'm familiar with this person." Secondly, about 10 years before, through the Department of Tourism here in Oklahoma, a friend of mine that worked there had shared with me someone had mailed them about a minute of Reverend Jones, a clip. And I was so intrigued with that. I could never put that out of my mind. So I had kind of one up on the seller. I was familiar with Jones. So as a result, we negotiated a price. He was on the moon, and I finally got him down to earth. But the risk was the film any good? After that film had been up in an attic for 70 years, it's nitrate film. We're talking it. I could have been buying something that was virtually useless. So I took the risk. It was a leap of faith. And as a result, that got it transferred, sent it on to Scottsdale, Arizona, where they digitized it, et cetera, and eventually it was sold in New York City through my agent to Yale University. A picture speaks 1,000 words. A moving picture speaks 1,000,000 words. It had happened nowhere else. You might have had an element of someone similar to doing a Reverend Jones in a Harlem, New York, but not running around Oklahoma, not running around the southwestern region of the country. Everyday life, special events of communities, parades and commencements, and the homemakers group canning things. It's a slice of life that if he had not had the wisdom to capture via film, would have been lost forever. I've never seen in film before in my life blacks that own oil wells here in Oklahoma. Covered several families. And I'm not talking about dozen, 2-3 dozen barrels a day. I'm talking about 2,000-3,000 barrels a day these families were making. These people got wealthy, not rich, wealthy. So those were members of his congregation. Again, Oklahoma is such a unique situation when it comes to the black experience. And Reverend Jones, again, we were blessed to have a person like that to be able to chronicle that on the technology of the day called film. I was a child of the 60s. I grew up in the Watts section of Los Angeles in the 1960s. And I'm gonna give you a little illustration here. And you know, again, there was a very popular TV program that NBC produced called I Spy. Robert Culp, Bill Cosby. Now, as a kid in the 60s, if you wanted to clear the streets, I Spy would come on TV. Everybody in the Watts area was in front of a TV set. We were so hungry for our image, to see a positive image of ourselves via Bill Cosby on TV, that you didn't have to worry about mom and daddy saying, oh, y'all need to get on in here. Oh, no. He, born into slavery, had saw the worst of America's treatment of Americans. And as a result of that, he knew there were other sides of us. Now again, these were showed in his church and what have they were showed in black formats. Okay. So what he wanted to do was uplift black folk and say, yeah, you're from Cotton Patch XYZ, but let me tell you what they're doing in Langston, Oklahoma. They got a university there. Let me tell you what they're doing in Boley, Oklahoma. They got a railroad station there. Oh, ain't nothing like showing you're somebody. You're beyond where the situation you currently are in. You're struggling now. But boy, there's a goal, there's an aim, there's an ambition that goes beyond, far beyond where you currently are.